Subject Law of Contract 1, Code U18 PCGL 101, Topic Privacy of Contract by N. Ramanathan, Assistant Professor, Bharat Institute of Law, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. Under the Indian Contract Act 1872, the party to a contract can only move the court of law for enforcing the contractual rights and enforcing the contractual obligations of the other parties. Our law of contract, Indian law of contract, is governed by Indian Contract Act 1872, which is imported from England only. The provisions are more or less the law governing law of contract in England. So English law and Indian law of contract are more or less the provisions and the principles and other conditions under the Indian Contract Act as well as the English law of contract are more or less same only. Here, now we are going to study about what is meant by privity of contract. When there is a contract, there are parties to a contract. They come to make a contract, two parties or three parties, whoever maybe, minimum two parties, they come together and agree on certain things to do certain things and they make a contract. Mostly it is out of commercial transactions only. Now, when there is a contract, eventually they are voluntarily creating rights and obligations, contractual rights, contractual obligations, that is duties under the particular contract voluntarily. Therefore, whenever there is any dispute in the contract, particular contract, only the parties who are the parties to the contract, they can only approach the court of law for enforcement of those contractual rights and obligations. So, the privity of contract says a stranger to a contract cannot sue. That is both, it is under English law as well as Indian law contract. It is for on the basis of the principle of privity of contract. Privity of contract in the sense there are parties to a contract. The contract is between them only, not with the others. So when there is any dispute in the contract, they have the right to move before the court of law for enforcing their rights only within themselves, only within the parties. The outside party, a stranger to the contract, he cannot enforce the contract. He cannot go before the court of law on the basis of such contract. And maybe even though it may be for the benefit of a particular stranger, in commercial transactions, a stranger cannot enter into the privity of the contract. Simple meaning is, suppose there is a contract between A and B. It may be for the purpose of buying and selling of the goods, buying and selling of property, buying and selling of some, providing of some services, etc. Whatever it may be, when there is a particular contract between A and B, whenever there is dispute, breach of contract, non-performance of contract, some other issues under the Contract Act, only A and B, they can move to the court of law. So A can go to the court of law against B. B can go to the court of law against A. Any other person, C, D, or whoever it may be, they cannot go to the court of law on the basis of contract between A and B. There are two famous cases in under the principle of privity of contract. Very important one is very commercial case, commercial transaction oriented case. Dunlop Pneumatic Tire Company versus Selfridge Limited, 1915. Here, Dunlop Company, they are the manufacturer of tires, we know that. And what is the way, business model they are carrying out? We know all that. The manufacturer, Dunlop company, they will first supply to some wholesaler only, wholesale dealer only. So there will be a contract between the manufacturer and wholesaler only. That is a privity of contract between Dunlop company, tire company, manufacturer, and wholesaler, who may be an X, okay, whoever it may be. This is the first contract. Thereafter, we know that when the wholesaler is having the tires, he will sell it to the retailer. That is the second contract. So, in that second contract, the contract is between wholesaler X and another retailer. In this case, retailer is Selfridge Limited. So, there are two contracts. One is the Dunlop company with Mr. Wholesaler X. That is a one contract, and another contract, the wholesaler X with Selfridge Limited. So as such, there is no contract between Dunlop Company and Selfridge Limited. There is no contract in between. And the idea here is, main idea is, Dunlop Company, they want to fix a minimum price for the tires. There will be a margin for the dealers, etc. It is okay. They don't want to reduce the price of the tire below certain price. Suppose they fix 100 rupees. So they may be supplying to the wholesaler, retailer at a lesser rate only. But at the same time, they will inform them, you don't sell it below 100 rupees. For example, 100 rupees. So it is to maintain the brand image of the tires, to maintain the market position domination. There are so many ideas behind fixing a minimum retail price. Accordingly, they are fixing the condition, that particular condition, in their contract also. That is very crucial. For example, when D is supplying to X, Dunlop company, they are supplying to wholesaler X. They are putting a condition in their terms of contract. The condition is, if you are X and I am supplying these tires to you under this contract, getting the price, I am supplying the tires. But there is a condition attached, which means that if you are selling to any other retailer, next level you have to sell it to retailer. It is natural. When you are selling it to a retailer, you have to put a condition that that retailer should not sell it below the list price. Say for example, 100 rupees, whatever it may be. That minimum price should be maintained. It should not go below. You should not give more discount to the customers. It should be minimum 100, means minimum 100 only. Above 100, if you are able to sell, it is your okay. Now, what happens? This condition they are putting, the Dunlop company putting to wholesaler X. This contract is over. They are supplying the goods. The wholesaler is getting the lot of tires. Now he is going to the retailer. Between retailer Selfridge and the wholesaler X, there is an agreement. There also the wholesaler X, wholesaler second agreement. Wholesaler X says to the retailer Selfridge Limited, putting a condition, I am selling it all the tires, whatever tires required by you, at a agreed price, and you are purchasing with the consideration, everything is okay. There is a condition that you should not sell these tires below the list price. There should be a minimum price to be maintained, say 100 rupees. Now, what happened? The retailer, when he is retailer Selfridge Limited, when they are selling to the consumers, customers, their customers, they sold at a price below the list price, lesser than the list price. For example, if it may be 100 rupees, they are selling it for 95 rupees, discount giving, they are giving. So there is a breach of contract by the Selfridge Limited. Now, the Dunlop company want to enforce this contract against Selfridge Limited, claiming compensation damages from Selfridge Limited. They are saying that there is a breach of contract by Selfridge Limited. Therefore, they are liable to pay compensation. This is their idea. But now, when we are applying the privity of contract, first contract, the contract is between Dunlop and wholesaler X only. Selfridge Limited is not at all in picture. In second contract, it is wholesaler X and Selfridge Limited only. Dunlop is not at all in picture. So the breach of contract by Selfridge Limited is in the second contract only with the wholesaler X, where Dunlop is not a party. They are not at all a party. They are outside the contract. They are the changes to the contract. It may be the Dunlop tires only, but they are as a party, they are outside the contract. As such, they cannot enforce that contract against Selfridge Limited. By Dunlop Company, they cannot move the court of law. That is the concept of privity of contract. In the second contract, they are not the party. Dunlop Company is not the party. So here we explained in clear terms. Dunlop supplying tires to wholesaler X. That is one agreement, first contract. In the second contract, X resupplied the tires to S, Selfridge Limited. That is the second contract. Thereafter, the third contract you find the S sold the tires below the list price to the customers, etc. So here you find that there is a breach of the contract, second contract only by Selfridge Limited. Breach of second contract only by the Selfridge Limited. Because in that both the first contract and second contract, they are making a condition that in any contract of the sale of tire, this condition should be included. What is the condition? The tire should not be sold below the list price. That is the condition. So the second agreement entered by Selfridge Limited with the wholesaler, right? So he violated that agreement. There is a condition in that condition. He violated the agreement. Then who has the right to get the compensation or any damages, etc.? Only X has the right because it is a contract between X and S only. Dunlop is outside this contract. Second contract, Dunlop is outside the contract. So he has no right to approach the court of law for damages against the Selfridge Limited in respect of the second contract, in respect of the contract between X and S. In respect of contract between X and S, Dunlop is outside the contract. He is not the party to the contract. That contract cannot be enforced by Dunlop Company. So the court clearly held that there was a contract between D and X. Thereafter, there is a contract between X and S. So this contract between X and Selfridge, Dunlop could not get any damages from Selfridge Limited. There are two aspects. One, between X and X, between X and Selfridge, there is a contract. Dunlop is not a party to the contract. And also there is no consideration by Dunlop in the second contract. Second contract means contract between X and S, Selfridge Limited. So this is the rule, legal rule. This is the privity of contract, both under the English law as well as Indian law, Indian Contract Act. So the other person who is not a party to the contract cannot sue upon it. Sue means to file a suit before the civil court of law. Even though the contract is for his benefit, even though the contract is for his benefit, here you find X and Selfridge is a party. Dunlop is outside person only. So he cannot go before the court of law. And the purpose of all these contracts, first contract, second contract, all these contracts, for the benefit of Dunlop only. Why? Only when it is maintained, sale price is maintained, they have a good image and other advantages. So the contract between X and Selfridge, the condition is there for the benefit of Dunlop company only. But in spite of that, they cannot enforce it because they are not the party to the contract. That is the rule, legal rule, privity of contract. So the privity of contract in any examples, whatever way you take, in any kind of commercial transactions, even involving a property, etc., there you find that the parties to the contract only can go before the court of law. Simple. Now you see there are other examples, also similar example. Suppose A is borrowed some amount from B. That is a different contract. So A is liable to pay some amount to B. That is one contract. Now, another contract he is entering with C only. A sell his property to C. So both contracts are different. A borrowing from B. Under that contract, he has to repay the loan amount to B. That is different. Outstanding to be given to B. That is different. Second contract, he is selling his property to C. That is different. At the time of selling the property and registering the agreement, etc., he is making a condition that the purchaser C has to pay the loan amount to the B. Whatever A has to pay, he will A has to pay B instead of A. C will pay the amount. That is how the condition was incorporated in the property transaction, second agreement. But we must be very careful that the second contract is only between A and C. There they are creating some benefit for B because of other transactions. But suppose C is not at all paying the loan amount. Suppose if he is paying the amount, it is well and good. If he is paying, complying that conditions, it is well and good. Suppose C is not at all complying that condition, he is failing to pay B. Whether B has a right to sue before the court of law, whether he can go before the court of law, it is for the benefit of B only. But there is no privity of contract between B and C. The second contract is only between A and C. So B cannot enforce, even though he is a beneficiary under this commercial transaction. It is to be very well, we have to keep it in our memory that this is all commercial transaction. So there where we are giving some benefit to the other person in commercial transactions, the rule of privity applies. The other party cannot come and claim his rights under the contract, even though his name may be mentioned, his benefit may be mentioned. So in the second transaction, in the property transactions, it is all mentioned for B's benefit, these to be given, all these things are mentioned. But still, in spite of that, this is a commercial transaction. So B is an outsider only, he is not a party. Suppose he is joined as a party, tri-party agreement, then he is also party, he has the right. But this is not a tri-party agreement, it is only A and C only. So even though B's name and other benefits are mentioned in that agreement, B is still outside the contract only. He cannot enforce it against C. Then another very important case is a very old case, Tweedle versus Hutchinson, 1861. In this case, it is not of course, it is not a commercial transaction. At the same time, it is also not a personal transaction or marriage transaction, nothing like that. Even though in olden days in English law, marriage is treated as a contract. Marriage is treated as a contract. Promise to marry is treated as a contract. Of course, here it is not a promise to marry also, it is not so. Here you find there is a marriage between a man and a woman. Boy and girl, it is mentioned, it is man and woman. It is there. There is at the time of marriage, it is not this contract is not a marriage contract. At the time of marriage, the father of the man and father of the women, the bride and bridegroom, their father, they are entering into a contract. So the contract is between the father of the bride and father of the bridegroom only, not between the boy and the father, etc. The parties are different. Four parties are there. The man and woman is there. They are going for a marriage. That is different. And their father, their parents, they are going into an agreement. And under that agreement, they say, we both of us will pay some money to the boy. Certain amount they have specified. Because he is going for a marriage of this girl. So they are agreeing. And it is neither a commercial transaction nor a personal transactions also. But anyhow, they are making some legal obligation. But the agreement is between the parents only, not with the bride or bridegroom. Now, what happened? After the demise of both the contracting parties, the parents died. Now the bridegroom, the boy, he want to get the money under the contract from the estate of the father-in-law, that is executors. So when the father-in-law dies, automatically his representatives comes. If there is any will or other things, etc., some executors are coming to distribute the property. So he is claiming against the property of the father-in-law on the basis of father-in-law's promise to pay him this amount upon the agreement between father and father-in-law, his own father and father-in-law. That is the agreement, and he is the beneficiary under that agreement because the father-in-law has to give the money to this person. That is it. But the court clearly held this is a leading case where it is held the suit was not maintainable. The bridegroom, the boy, cannot be a party to the. He was not a party to the contract, so he cannot go to the court of law and ask for the benefit under that contract. It is very clear. However, we find this is purely this rule of privity of contract always applicable in respect of commercial transactions where there is a proper consideration between the parties. So when there is a benefit given to the other party, he is outside the contract as well as he is not providing any consideration to that contract. That is why in commercial transactions, that person is always treated as a stranger to the contract, outside of the contract. So he has no right under the contract to go before the court of law. That is the idea behind all these commercial transactions, agreement governing the commercial transactions. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. And you find that in those exceptions, both in English law as well as Indian law, you find that those are all maybe related to commercial transaction or not related to commercial transactions also. But in such cases, some kind of legal rights are created for the beneficiary as a some kind of private legal obligation, some kind of trust, some kind of settlement of property, settlement among family members. These are all very valid exceptions. We know that the settlement of properties between family members without any consideration that is valid. Similarly, when they are going for any settlement of properties, they may provide some benefits to some of the parties for the reason that the property may be enjoyed by some people under the settlement and some people are not getting the property. So in that case, there is a consideration because they are not getting the property. In lieu of that property, some concession is created, some legal rights are created under the settlement. So it is a valid contract. In such cases, the beneficiaries can claim their legal rights under the contract. That is how the exceptions comes. In commercial contract, no such exceptions. But in personal matters, where there may be where family transactions are there, and it may be a property transactions also. But at the same time, when they are making a property transaction by way of some kind of family settlement or by some kind of a trust, where some parties may be all relatives only. Some parties are getting property rights, some parties are foregoing their property rights. That is the consideration. They are giving their property rights. For that consideration, some allowances, some other legal rights are created under the settlement deed. In such cases, it is a valid exceptions. Similarly, trust also. In the case of a trust, what happens? There is a person who is transferring his property, whether it may be a movable property or immovable property also. He is creating a trust for the benefit of, it may be a private trust for the benefit of his family members, some family members, or for the benefit of general public. It is a public trust, general public. For example, Pachayapa's Educational Trust is a public trust. Entire property given by the Pachayapa's, Mr. Pachayapa's golden days as a trust property. And in that case, The trustees are the authority to administer the property. In that case, the beneficiaries, who are the beneficiary? If it is a private trust, the private people, or if it is a public trust, any member of the public who is benefiting from these trusts, they can approach the court of law for their benefits, and if anything is going against law by the trustees. So that is a law of trust. So law of trust also an exemption where the beneficiaries, even though they are not the signatories, not the parties to the original contract of trust, they can always approach the court of law. So these are all the valid exceptions. So the rule is that a stranger to a contract cannot sue on the contract. That is the rule. But at the same time, there are exceptions. What are the exceptions? Trust or settlement. It may be trust under the law of trust. It is permitted. Law of trust, a beneficiary under an agreement to create a trust. At that time, the beneficiary is not at all in the picture. Only the person who is giving the property as a trust and the trustees. Only the appointment is, the trust is created only between these people only. But it is clearly mentioned for the benefit of so many people. It may be private trust where family members as the beneficiary, or it may be a public trust, certain class of persons are treated as beneficiaries. So for the enforcement of trust, the beneficiary can go before the court of law, can sue upon those trust agreement. That's the first exceptions to the privity rule. So it may be a trust or settlement under the law of trust. Here it is a case of a private trust or private settlement. You can take it as a private trust or a private settlement also you can take it. Here you find that in the personal law is also involved. There is a marriage between men and women, and in Gawaja Muhammad versus Hussein Ibrahim, there is a personal law element also involved again. It is a part of the personal customary practice. It is part of the personal customary practice. In the at the time of marriage, some allowances, some amount to be paid to the women, the marrying woman, the marrying lady should be given. The personal customary practice is that. So here what they are doing, they are entering into a contract. Here also you can see the parents are entering into a contract to give the allowances, monthly allowances to the married woman. She is not a party to it. Here you find that it is not a commercial transaction. It is a personal transactions, and it is a customary practice to give some amount to the marrying women by the bridegroom. It is a giving the amount to the bride by bridegroom. So instead of giving the amount, they are making a settlement by way of some kind of settlement where they are mentioning, the parents of mentioning, regularly they will give the allowance, monthly allowance to her. So it is a valid exception. So she can move the court of law for enforcing against the father-in-law, even though she is not a party, only parents are the party. She can enforce to, she can approach the court of law. This is decided in 1910. It was held. She has the right to go to the court of law and enforce and recover the arrears of allowances under the contract between the parents. The reason being that it is not a commercial transaction. Her personal rights are created and settled as per the customary practice. She could enforce the promise in her favor. She was the beneficiary by way of a settlement in her favor. It is not a commercial transaction. A settlement of her legal rights. And this is, of course, a commercial transaction. Assigning under an assignment. Assignment is nothing but whatever a person is having a rights under the contract, under any contract, he can assign the rights, which means he can transfer the rights to any other person. But only thing is they have to give the notice of assignment to the other party. Suppose A and B is there in a contract. So A can assign his rights when he is he is not at all having any rights. His obligation, he will be continuing to fulfill the obligations. But whatever the rights, he can transfer the rights to any other person and give the notice of assignment to the other party. That is enough. That is enough. Normally, this is happening in insurance policy, etc. Under the insurance policy, the insurance policy holder is having some rights. That is, at the happening of some event after 15 years, he may be getting the lump sum policy amount. That is always promised under the life insurance policy. So the policy holder, he can transfer the policy to any other person, assign the policy, and intimate the assignment to the insurance company. But at the same time, either himself or other person, they are liable to pay the insurance premium. It should be kept valid. So similarly, any contract, it can be, the rights can be assigned. But there are certain commercial contracts where only rights can be assigned, not the duties. So they continue to be performing their duties under the contract. But here what happens when they are assigning the rights, A, B is there, they have the rights. A is assigning the rights to C and intimating it to B. So C has the right to enforce against B also. But at the same time, A has the duty to pay whatever is duty under to B. It cannot be transferred without the permission of B. Of course, now we will not go into those things. And nominee right is different. Nominee has no rights actually. Nominee has no rights. Here also you can say family arrangements are also exceptions. Family parties between family parties. For example, settlement between male members of a Hindu family. There are so many properties, ancestral property. One day they are making a family settlement. They are registering a valid property document by settlement of property. And the properties are only shared among the male members only, all brothers only, and all the females members, they are not getting any property. It is also customary. Of course, nowadays you know that there is a equal rights to women also in property also. They have the equal rights over the property. Of course, these are all the certain olden days exceptions where still the customary practice was given importance. In such cases, the male members are taking the property and female members, they are foregoing their legal rights over the property. That is a valid consideration. So in such cases, under the property settlement, they are providing for maintenance or expenses for the marriage or other expenses of the female members, monthly allowances, etc. That is a valid exceptions. They can come and claim those maintenance expenses from the parties, other parties, these male members only parties, and they are enjoying the properties under the settlement as by way of customary practice. They are registering a document. Female members are not getting any share in the property, so they are creating a family arrangement to pay some expenses or allowances to female members. That is a valid exceptions. So they have the actual beneficial rights. They are beneficiaries under this kind of family settlement. And of course, acknowledgement of liability. This is a commercial transaction only. Suppose A receives money from B only. The contract is between from A and B only. But the contract is, the amount is to be paid to C. Amount is to be paid to C. The contract is between A and B only. But the contract is ultimately the amount to be paid to C only. And C and also A what he says, he receives money and inform the C that I received money on your behalf. In that case, what happened? He is a agent of the C. He becomes the agent of the C. Automatically, what happens? C is the principal person. A is only his agent. So the agent can enforce the contract against B, as well as the principal C also can enforce the contract. So this is only a question of the agent. And there is a concept, legal concept of estoppel. Somebody, if he admitted certain things, if even though it may not be his legal obligation, if he says that I am legally obliged and then making an agreement on that basis, then he cannot go behind it. He cannot go in opposition to it. He will be stopped. He has to perform it. So suppose he is not a party to a contract, but he says that yes, I am liable for it. Then will be liable to perform this promise. And here also you find that whenever there is an immovable property and they are creating like a charge, it is more like a mortgage, like a charge. They are making it very clear that it is a charge on the property, which means that the property is having some liability and the property is transferred to other person with that liability only. He is not taking free from encumbrance. Normally, the properties are transferred to any person without any liability. You pay me some amount, 50 lakhs rupees, I am transferring this property. That is a normal transactions. But here you find that the property is having some kind of liability on the property, some kind of legal rights of a person. In that case, the property is transferred along with the liability. That is called, we call it charge. In that case, whoever is the charge holder, he can always enforce the promise. And of course, this 1967 case, Beswick versus Beswick, where the privity of contract was applied and the exceptions was recognized. The exception was recognized. Here you can find that there is one business transaction also, and also at the same time there is a family settlement also. Both, it is both cases. But what happened in this case, it is very interesting case. The court was finally giving the relief not on the basis of exception. Finally the court of appeal told that there is a privity of contract applying here. So she is not entitled. Oh, I will give the facts now afterwards. She is not entitled, they are saying, under the law of contract, privity of contract. It is not covered under the exception, they are saying. But in other aspect, yes, they are given the relief. So it is a very interesting case. We have to see this case, 1967 case, Beswick versus Beswick. The reason being that there is one aspect in commercial transactions, the privity of contract rule applies. In other aspects, exceptions come. Other aspects means there is no commercial transaction. Some kind of benefits given as way of legal rights, private settlement in that cases. So there may be certain cases it is in borderline, whether it is a commercial transactions or it is a personal settlement, we do not know. The way it is complicated transactions. The court may be treating them either as a privity of contract or as an exception. So it is not very clear-cut cases. There are some cases, it is not clear-cut cases. You can find one such example is Beswick versus Beswick. And now we will go to the facts of this case. He is a Peter Beswick. He is a coal merchant. Actually, he has no shop, no business place, etc. He is having a lorry. He is a moving store. His lorry itself, mobile store. So from the lorry, he will take the coal, collect the coal from the National Coal Board. He will pay the price to the National Coal Board, collect the coals from the National Coal Board, fill up the lorry, and he will take it to the customer's place. It is a fuel. Nowadays we are using gas stoves, etc. But in olden days, they are using the coal only for the purpose of cooking and other purpose, heating purposes, etc. So he is going a mobile store. He is purchasing in a lorry all the coals from the coal board, and he is supplying to the doorstep of the customer. This is his business only. This is a business. His business. He is having his own relative, young person. He is helping this in the business. Now what happened? He has become a old person. Both Peter Peswick and his wife, they are more than 70 years of old. Now he is not able to continue the business. He is not in a good health. Now, naturally, what happens? The business to be transferred to be sold to any person. That is a business. It is a business, commercial transaction. Now there is a sale of business. That is also commercial transaction. But what happened? This nephew is relative. He is a relative. So there is a personal element here, both personal element. Now he want to take the business, holding as a business. So he went to an advocate, solicitor, where we are calling him solicitor. So he prepared an agreement. So here you can find that the nephew might not have given any consideration at all, even though it's a business sale by these old people, business people, to his the relative. The relative might not be even any consideration at all because he's a relative. He's a business sale, but being a relative, he might have given lesser price also. Lesser price. There is a chance. So what happened in the agreement? They prepared an agreement. What is that agreement? Peter will give the business to his relative, assign the business. And what is the consideration? The relative will employ Peter for the rest of his life. And after his life, paying a weekly annuity to the Mrs. Beswick. So the relative saying that the old man, as long as you are here, you will be employed as an employee and I will be paying some monthly allowance. That is the consideration. And after your life, your expiry of life, thereafter, every week I will pay some amount to the your wife. That is the agreement. And this person is having an idea. This relative is having an idea that the wife is not a party to the contract. Only the Peter and the relative, they are party to the contract. So he feels that I need not perform it. He want to make a breach of this agreement because he thinks that the wife is not a party to a contract. I need not pay. So only he paid for a one amount, 1 week only he paid it. Afterwards he didn't pay it. Then Mrs. Beswick, she moved to the court of law. And he was arguing that relative doctrine of privity of contract. My contract is between Mr. Beswick only. The relative is arguing my contract is between Mr. Beswick only. It is a commercial contract, contract of sale of business only. So Mrs. Beswick is an outside party. She has no right to claim under that contract. This is his way of argument before the court of law. In the court, Lord Denning, he held that Mrs. Beswick was entitled to claim in his capacity as a third party. Of course, he is bringing it under the exception to the privacy of contract because some benefit by way of some legal interest is there. Legal interest is they are transferring the property. Of course, that is a business of the husband only. They are transferring the property. So automatically, the husband as well as their Mrs. Biswick also has a legal right in it. That is the idea of Mr. The Lord Jennings judge in that particular case. But he held that it is an exception under the privity of contract. It is an exception. So she is having the right as an exception to the privity of contract. But what happened? So by the enforced by her. But the House of Lords, they disagreed with the Lord Denning. They are telling that it is not a exception. Privity of contract apply. She has no right. That is their idea. No right as a third party. At the same time, they are saying that she has the relief. She is the Mr. Beswick's administratrix, which means that now Mr. Beswick is not at all there. Whatever Mr. Beswick writes, automatically comes to the legal guy, legal executor. Now, when Mr. Beswick is not available, Mrs. Beswick is a legal heir, legal executor of the contract. So, when Mr. Beswick is available, only Mr. Beswick can enforce it. That is the privity of contract. Now, Mr. Beswick is not available. A legal representative, legal executor, they can enforce the contract. So, they are saying it is not an exception. It is still a privity of contract only. She is now a contracting party only on behalf of the deceased Mr. Beswick. That is the idea of the House of Lords. So they are saying it is a representative capacity only she is applying, so she has the right. So by Lord Denning judgment, she is entitled as a exception to the privity of contract. But Court of Appeal clearly held that it is not at all an exception. Still, the privity of contract applies. But instead of Mr. Beswick is not available. She is the legal executor of the Mr. Beswick on that representative capacity. She can enforce the contract. That is the idea. And they have also informed that specific performance of the contract she is entitled. Whatever promised with nephew, he has to perform it every week. He has to give the allowance. That is the idea they are giving. I thank you all for listening this video lecture. Thank you.